become professional, I had to have that mentality
Yeah.
at that point. And so that's why when I was a junior, I asked my teacher if there's any more schools around, because
That's
I just
fantastic.
wanted to keep going. I
And
knew
boy,
that.
man, that was a stroke of luck, I guess, in general.
Yeah, a lot of things kind of just fit together. I had, good parents that were supportive. For some reason, I had that hunger.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't create that for myself. I just have.
Yeah, that drive. Some
drive,
people
it
just
just
inherent.
comes.
It's inherent in them.
Yeah, and then really good role models, right? I mean, I was really lucky to have the school right
In your
my
backyard.
neighborhood.
Yeah. That's rare for a lot of people that get to
so-
come here.
Yeah.
That kind of leads me to my next one, which is, and again, this is something you can kind of. It doesn't need to be a specific, but your favorite period in art or illustration. But you're primarily more fine art than illustration driven, but still like a lot of the illustrators, I'm sure.
I do like. Full-time student. I actually did study a lot of the illustrators, even though I wanted to be a fine artist, like Rockwell, Cornwell, all the big guys there.
Yeah.
But I also enjoy a lot of the Russian artists. They're a lot more loose and just expressive, and I really like that feeling that every each one of them is obviously has their own style. They don't. You can tell when you look at their paintings that they just kind of let go, and they do it with heart.
Mm-hmm.
Just very expressive brushstrokes, and that's very inspiring. So it's like a really good balance between knowledge and craft and expressing.
I would agree.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I see that same correlation in a lot of the Russian painters where they're just, I guess my whole take, which is similar to what you were saying, is just that they don't seem to paint for monetary kind of commercial aspects.
Yeah.
They're a little more honest painters. It
Yeah,
seems
honest.
like.
Right,
Yeah.
Deceased is a little easier, I think, to answer. Repin,
Mm-hmm.
or Ilya Repin, in Russian.
Mm-hmm.
And then living, it's a little harder. The one that's been on my favorite list for the longest time has been Morgan Weisling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm slowly kind of going towards slightly more abstract people, not as real as far as staging the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, that's good. I mean, he's a good guy to. I mean, he's right up there with as far as
yeah, I mean
contemporary
he's
painters.
still one of my favorites. I mean,
Yeah.
I think he will always be one of the favorites. He's just so good at his craft. Right now, rocking it.
Chinese guys, any of the. I mean, there's a couple of those guys that are pretty.
Calvin
amazing.
Liang, I think he's starting to really get up there. Just recently, I guess he did one of his first big paintings,
Mm-hmm.
and he was at the Autry
Mm-hmm.
show, and that was amazing. I mean, he's been doing plein air paintings for a while, and now he's moving up to larger scenes, and you can tell he's going to be
Yeah.
really. His prices are probably going to.
Yeah.
Because they're so cheap right now. And
Yeah.
So they're gonna. So I think he's rocking it. Casey Baugh was one that I kind of discovered recently. I think he's really good, and not just in his in the skills, but also just in marketing and just
Yeah.
being a professional artist.
Yeah.
Casey Baugh and David Casson.
Yeah.
Those guys.
Yeah, they're out there a lot.
Yeah,
always
they're out
present.
there.
Always see them. Social
Yeah.
media. They're all over the place.
Yeah. So those are kind of the guys I look up to, and just as
Good choices.
role models. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're young too, so
Yeah, it's kind of nice to look at people
yeah.
of a similar age group because you're kind of thinking we're kind of all in together.
Mhm.
They're probably battling the same problems you're having, or the same.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
They're a little ahead of me, I think, but
Yeah.
or probably a lot ahead of me, but but they're still young, and I can kind of relate to them more than like Richard Schmidt. He's obviously
Yeah.
rocking it, but I can't relate to him. He's
Yeah.
a master, and he,
He's-
anything
yeah.
he does is going to be good, and everybody's going to love it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, that's good. Those are good. That's a good answer. Those are good answers. Definitely. Now, if you could paint anything, and if you could paint anything that you wanted to, what would it be? I mean, it could be subject. It could be, it'd probably be subject, I would imagine. But what would you paint? I mean, portrait commissions, or would you prefer to do more, again, just your dream thing to paint, or your dream subject matter, dream
well,
genre?
I think it's always going to be figurative. As far as the genre, I don't know. It's changing. Like right now, I'm actually going through a transition. For a while, I was doing just Ukrainian, Russian farm life scenes. Right now, I'm kind of transitioning more to just nude figure.
Mm-hmm.
Just focus on just the body, not necessarily any time period or country, just the human figure.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to, like I was saying, going a little more graphic and abstract with the composition.
Yeah.
So focusing just on the figure. So I'll probably have slightly more finished skin tones, and then the composition itself will just be a little more graphic.
Well, excellent.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that, because I have seen, obviously, you in class do some figures, and I've seen your drawings are really ridiculously strong in figure.
Mhm.
Painting wise, I haven't seen a lot of more finished, which because you
I
probably haven't done a lot.
I haven't.
So that'd be interesting.
So-
That'd be nice to see.
And yeah, I actually, one of the reasons I decided to do that is because I noticed that there's kind of a disconnect between my drawings and my paintings. My drawings are a little stronger, I think. And so I kind of looked and I thought, well, why is that? And it's my mentality, the way I approach it. When I'm drawing, I think completely differently than when I'm painting. And I think by doing these figure paintings, it's kind of connect them a little bit better.
Mhm.
And I'll be able to borrow more from my drawing skills to apply to the painting skills. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, these are just kind of
No,
thoughts I'm
that
having
makes
right
it
now,
makes a
and-
lot of sense, though. I mean, even from all the experiences I've had, I mean, that
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense. So, really looking forward to seeing
Mm.
how those come out, because I remember seeing some of the reference you were going to paint from and stuff, and it looked really good. So it should be nice. It should be fun to.
Yeah,
You
we'll
think
see.
more?
I'm excited to
So
see it
more
too.
Jacob Collins-ish? Tighter
Um,
figures? Are you going to go more Schmidt? Are you going to
more
go more
tight figures, but still,
Steve
textured.
Houston, maybe?
Steve
or-
Houston, yeah, he's actually the guy I'm looking at a lot right now. Steve Houston's figures they're expressive, but then they're really tight in areas where there needs to be detail.
Yeah.
And then the compositions are a little more abstract, right? They're very, very graphic.
My next question would be most unexpected aspect of being a professional, like something that's really either surprised you, maybe it's the workload, maybe it's just, I don't know, continuing education, how hard it is. I don't know.
I guess there's a few. I don't know if there's one main thing, but one is how difficult it is to keep your skills. You get good and you get to the point where you're really confident in your skills, and then you'll maybe focus on something else for a while. Like instead of doing, like, let's say you get really good at landscape, you go out every week and you just get real good and you're confident in your landscapes, and then you stop for 6 months and you focus on figures or portrait, and then you go back out plein air painting and you lost so much of it.
Yeah, I know.
like,
It's
what?
maddening.
That-
It's maddening. It really is. And that's the thing about, you try to preface people with that, and you say, just, it's one thing to get your skills, it's another thing. And the maintenance is not all that bad. You just can't take extended breaks, like you're
Yeah.
saying, at all.
And there's
I mean,
so
you
many
really can't.
things, I want to be a well-rounded artist, and so that means I have to do a lot of things. Landscape, still life, portrait, figure, composing a scene,
Narratives. Yeah.
narratives. I mean, there's just so much, drawing and painting.
You were preaching to the choir, my
Um,
friend. 'Cause
Yeah, so you can't do it all the time.
No,
You're gonna lag at a bunch of them, and then you go back and you have to bring your skills back up, and then the other ones go down.
Yeah, I
It's
think as
annoying.
long as
It's
I think that
annoying.
they're all progressively getting better. Because I look at my drawings from and I was laughing last night in life drawing class. I was looking at 1998 when I was teaching 14 figure drawing classes, or 14 drawing classes a week, and I was so effortless with the demos, and everything was so fluid. And I think that was probably one of my strongest periods of demoing was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and you just, now I'm working on more paintings, you come in to draw and you're good, but you just lose that little snap that you used to have, and you have to get it back, and you have to spend 6 months getting it back probably, or doing it fairly regular. So I agree with you on that one. That's a rough one. Yeah. So that would be
that's one. Another one is balancing just lifestyle. I mean, I guess they kind of both go together. Is it takes so much time to maintain your skills that you got to find the time to do that. And you know, as a kid, I didn't have many responsibilities, but now, you know, at the same time that I'm becoming a professional, you know, I have more responsibilities as an adult, and all those things come together, and it's like
lop a couple kids on there, and
you know, and I don't even have a family yet.
I know.
So
it's pretty maddening.
I can't imagine what that's gonna be like. And
That's
so,
you know. Well,
finding the time, balancing. You know, the hardest part is, I think, time. Yeah.
So that takes me to my next question, which would be probably your favorite, you know, art assignment.
My biggest one was the one I really planned out, did a lot of prep work for. Was the chopping lessons painting, where I did 2 photo shoots with 2 models separate. First, I had to do a bunch of sketches, kind of figure out the staging, and then I had the photo shoot with them, and then I put them together in Photoshop, and I had, I think, 8 different photographs in that painting. You know, the cabin in the back, the grassy lawn, the pile of wood.
Yeah, those are challenging.
The background. Yeah, just that was really fun because it was the first time that I was thinking in a big scale narrative. I don't think I haven't done anything since then that ambitious. But mainly because I think it's still a little too early in my career to be doing a lot of those. It hasn't sold yet because I don't have a large following of collectors.
Kind of,
you know, and people aren't willing to spend that much money and also take up that much wall space with my paintings yet.
Yeah.
So
is that something you'd want to do more of down the road?
Probably. Yeah, probably more when they're selling better and people want more of that kind of stuff from me. But right now, I think focused more on smaller
efforts.
Not such crazy big scenes.
I hear you. I've been there.
But yeah, that was very fun. It took a while, but the whole process was very easy. It just kind of flowed through.
Yeah, a nice piece. I mean, a really nice piece.
And it's one of my favorites. The result was one of my favorites, not just the process. The process, the result is one of my favorites.
Yeah. Then that takes me. You're 26 now. So some future goals. Where do you see yourself heading in the next 10 years or so? What would you like to see? What would you like to accomplish? What would you be heading towards?
Well, I mean, painting more, obviously. Just
I think that's a given.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've been doing a lot of teaching on the internet, doing videos and stuff, and that's been taking up a lot of my time. Taking away a little from my painting, actually, and
it will.
It is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's worth it. I'm enjoying it, and so. Yeah, I mean, as far as the videos, I think I want to just build a good company that provides good educational material for artists. The world is becoming very digital, very internet based, and I think now is a good time to really
head in that direction.
Do that. And you see artists, everybody's starting to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's online schools popping up everywhere now. Yeah. It's like every month there's a new online school that pops up.
Yeah.
So
it's nice because the world is more of a global. Like we're doing that too with the Atelier. I'll be working on one and been doing that for quite a while. And I think just going forward for me, because the business model's been 20 years now. I mean, it just seems like a natural progression. But I think I wanted to try to do that 10 years ago, and there was just no technology. There was nothing. Yeah. Nothing was around. I mean, I tried to do a business model. Yeah, the timing definitely has to be there. So, well, that'd be fun to see that transpire and kind of what comes from that. And I'm sure it'll be great stuff because I've already seen some of the stuff you're doing is really good. So, yeah, it'll be fun to just continue to watch you evolve. In there, like what one of your favorite books is, or what's your favorite art book? I mean, that's one I did not put on there, but I thought would be kind of fun because everybody has their particulars. It's hard to pick one, but it'd be probably easier to say top 5 favorite art books. But If you had to pick one, like if you were on a desert island and you had one book that you could take with you or whatever, what would you pick? I know, that's a toughie.
That's so hard because
Are you going to be
there's so
anatomy?
many
Is it going to be a
different-
painter? Is it going to be all prima? Is it going to be, what is it going to be? I mean, you got one book that you really would.
Probably alla prima, just because it's such a good balance between just fun to read, really good information, also good well-rounded information.
Yeah.
It's good for painting, drawing, and then painting any subject.
You kind of nailed it on that one. I think.
Yeah, it's just a really well-rounded book for artists in general. But the book that I probably have opened the most is probably Goldfinger's anatomy book.
Wow, I would not have expected that.
I don't either because
it's a great book.
But it's a good reference book.
Yeah,
you always go to
fantastic for referring. I just man, it's dry. But
well, right. I don't read it.
I know, yeah, exactly. But even to draw from, it's pretty dry. But I do. I've blown out one of those. The binder is completely shot on it, and it's in pieces. So
it's ripped
that's
apart.
That's got a lot of use as well. I admit, mostly for cross-referencing for any other anatomy book that you're going to use.
And I also, I'm the kind of guy, I don't have a very good memory, so I forget the anatomy.
The names or the insertions or just
Both.
in general? Both, yeah.
I'll study it really intensely. A few months later, I've forgotten everything.
Yeah. It's hard. That's another area that, to teach anatomy well, having to know the names, insertions, and origins,
Yeah,
functions.
teaching it's good. It forces me to go back and learn.
Yeah, it's a
every
rough
time.
one. So one thing a lot of people don't know about us is that we've traveled quite a bit. We did a Russia trip a couple years ago, and that segues kind of into. You're a really big fan of Repins, obviously, and
yeah.
Was that one of the trips where you really got into the Repin stuff when we were?
No, I was in Repin before that.
Way before that.
It made it even stronger.
Solidified
Seeing them in person.
It blew me away.
Was,
That was crazy good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what was your? When we traveled, obviously it was really fun because we were traveling with your folks. We were going through a lot of villages. We were kind of staying with relatives, so we weren't doing the normal hotel.
It was real.
Yeah, it was the real deal.
We didn't
No
stay
toilets,
in a hotel.
no.
Yeah.
No, it was a mix of all kinds of crazy stuff. It was fun though.
My parents tried to make it as cheap as possible, of course.
Yeah.
And so we have friends in all the parts that we stayed at, and so they called up all their friends and asked them if we could stay in their house. And one of those places was on a farm in Ukraine.
Yeah.
No plumbing.
No plumbing.
But that was a great experience. I got a lot of good reference, real reference. It was actual people that are living that lifestyle that I was painting at the time.
Yeah.
So that was a great trip for me as far as actually experiencing what I'm trying to depict in my paintings.
Yeah, you almost have to do that. It
Yeah.
makes such a huge difference. I know I have yet to get to painting some of that reference, but I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun. It was fun to kind of see that was the way people still are living there is pretty rural. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do some fun stuff with that. So I was really, that was so cool, that trip. But hopefully in the future we'll be doing some trips together too. So it's one of those things where I think that's something that it's fun to find artistic travel partners that can actually take the time to go do that kind of stuff. A lot of people their lives are too complex.
It's fun to travel with another artist.
Yeah. Just the perspective. It's funny because I imagine when we come back, we'll both have paintings that are almost very similar because all the angles of people, but
they weren't.
The takes will be so different.
Well, you've done
done a few pieces.
You've done, and then I did one I think that we got from the exact same shoot.
Yeah.
That we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And the paintings are totally
different. The style's so different. It's just, I think it's kind of fun, like maybe some way down in history, depending on where we end up. But that would be fun to look back and you can see the different paintings that were done. Because you see that in past parts of history too, where artists used to paint similar subject matter, or go on similar areas, or would travel together, and that's really cool. So I thought it was really a great trip. And I think that's just another thing that helped solidify a bond between the two of us, just as far as friends. It's just kind of fun to get outside the school. I don't get to normally do that with a lot of the instructors and go get to see them just in regular life. Everyone still thinks of you as a teacher or a mentor, and not as a regular person that just is just a regular guy just kind of going through life. So that was good. That was a really good period, and that was a lot of fun. And hopefully, I think this year we may do something. So we'll see how it plays out. But maybe we'll do a little something on that when we get back, a little interview or something, or a
Yeah.
little.
Less drinking next time.
Less drinking, yes. The vodka, you can, yes. The
Yeah.
Russians.
They made you drink.
I did drink a lot. Yes, I came back pickled. That was a fun trip. I had a lot of great times with you over there. So, but well, thanks for taking the time. I mean, I know you just finished a class at the Atelier, and so
it was an anatomy class.
Yeah, and I snuck in and had to interview you right after. So I appreciate you taking that time, because I know that can be kind of hard. But well, thanks, Dan. I mean, again, you're one of my favorite students. You were and still are, and a good friend of mine. So I just wish you all the best in the future, and it'll be fun to see where everybody ends up and how you do going forward. I'm sure I always knew you would do great. I mean, I did. Usually you can tell early on. You can see seeds of the talent there, and then it's just so many variables that have to play out if the person's going to realize their true talent. I mean, they got to just do so much sacrifices. So many things have to be made, decisions.
Yeah.
So
I think it's mainly the hunger.
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm most the happiest that I just kind of got naturally. Is that for some reason I just
driven.
I want it so bad.
That's
like
good.
it makes staying up at night, late at night working so much easier when you just want it really bad.
Yeah, passionate versus just obligation. You know, my wife will often look at me and go, "What is driving you? What is we don't have kids. We don't do. Why are you working so hard?" And I just wired to work hard.
Yeah.
I like it. It's fun. It's a passionate thing, so you don't lose steam in it at all. So I totally get that, and you could see that in you very early on. So it was it's just fun. I'm just amazed. I mean, if you would have told me maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago when I met you, be sitting down interviewing you in 10 years and you'd still be here.
Yeah.
That would have blown my mind, but everybody's still stuck it out. We have every teacher's 10 plus years, and that's almost impossible to get an environment that's so good that people would want to stay in it that long, which is one of the coolest things about it.
It's a great environment. I mean,
I'm
really lucky to have been.
You've seen a lot of the phases. I mean, a great deal of them. I mean, you were not in the very beginning, obviously. I think when I started it, you were probably 2 or 3 or something. I don't know. You were.
How long?
I've been at 20 years now. So
20?
You were 6.
I was 6. I was still in Russia.
Yeah. You
Ukraine.
were. Isn't that amazing? So that's crazy. But anyway, yeah, we'll kind of cut it off here, and I think maybe we'll do a follow up in the future or something as things progress. And but anyway, thanks again, Stan, for coming in. It's really cool to have you. Thanks again, you guys, for tuning in for this month's podcast on the instructor interviews. We'll continue to do them going forward. So I look forward to interviewing the rest of the instructors and sharing their insights with you all out there in internet world there. So anyway, have a good one, and we'll take care, and we'll see you soon. Where'd that come from? You can cut that out. You can give that one a cut. That was awesome. Like, trying to think of where am I going with this? Yeah, internet. Well, welcome everybody. Again, you guys already know me. I'm Jeff Watts, and I've been doing a lot of these Friday Night Lives. And we're also, doing a little sequence of podcasts that I'll be starting to do. And this is the first real, probably the second one. We did one on the guilds a little while back. The one I want to talk about right now, the subject I really is close to my heart, and one that I've spent most of my life delving into, understanding, trying to understand, is training. And training in art is a very mysterious thing. I mean, when I was coming up, I didn't really hear a lot about, how does one train? What kind of techniques does one use? Yeah, of course you knew how to draw. You didn't need to learn how to paint. But aside from that, how does one go about learning how to draw and learning how to paint? How does someone break down their daily repertoire so that they know in their schedule how to do long-term, short-term, mid-term goals, goal setting, visualization techniques, manifesting, things that a lot of people don't really even spend any time thinking about in the arena of art training. So what I wanted to talk about today is do a little bit of a exploration of the concepts of training and how one goes about training intelligently in the arts, because it doesn't differ all that much from other endeavors that require huge amounts of repetition, things of
athletics, music. A lot of the arts share that common denominator of repetition. And repetition is something that I was never really told when I started school. It seemed like maybe to some it seems like maybe common sense, but I don't see that in my students. A lot of times they really struggle with this idea of either thinking that they either were supposed to have some God-given gift that allowed them to paint and draw, some genetic predisposition, which yes, there are aptitudes. You know, I'm definitely visually wired. So I have a tendency to learn through visual means. And I always have, ever since I was a little tiny guy. Other people are academic and they learn mathematics, or they're really fluent in maybe history or English, or they excel in certain things. So why should art be any different? But what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of my background. I'll start out with a little, this is kind of the introduction, and this is me talking about how I am wired. I knew I had a very unique wiring at a very young age. My parents did as well. My father's an artist, an incredibly accomplished painter. You guys have seen him on the online program, some of you. And he is very, very gifted and skilled. So genetically, yes, I probably had a predisposition to some degree towards the arts. But that being said, my dad did not sit me down and just all of a sudden infuse into me or inject into me this knowledge of how to be a good painter or how to be a good draftsman. I had to do it through the old-fashioned sweat equity, get in there, spend thousands and thousands of hours on all these different concepts and find a way to navigate through this myriad of complexities that encapsulate this artistic journey. And so I did a blog post also on my artistic journey, which shows you some of the plateaus and some of the different styles of painting that I've explored on my way to where I am now. And I'm still in the process of that. So there is really no definitive time with which you sit down and say, I have become this great artist and this is how I work. It's always a metamorphosis. There's lots of change that you have to embrace. There's lots of spiritual aspects to this journey that we're going to go on together, hopefully. And so if not, if you're just watching this on YouTube and you're just wanting to get a little bit of insight into what I know about training, then hopefully this will be a good precursor to maybe making some good decisions on where you're going to go to school, how you're going to spend your energy, your time, because that's what we're really struggling with is our time. That's our most valuable asset. So my background was in athletics. I wanted to be a professional athlete. Some of you already know that from watching maybe little clips online or something. So I trained in very obscure athletic endeavors, competitive cycling, for example, soccer, things like that. Soccer wasn't quite as cryptic as cycling was, but I had to learn how to train, how to eat, when to train, how much to train, what types of training. And I had no access to coaches, and the sport in the United States at the time was not very well known. So you were kind of left on your own, and there was no internet at this time. So you couldn't just go and look up training regimens for a cyclist. Sprint training, long distance training, interval training, these different styles of training to work different aspects of the sport. So I don't want to get too far into that. What I'm saying is that I had to learn how to self-educate myself intelligently in areas like athletics. So when it came time for me to go to art school, the high school I was in was absolutely ridiculous. I think the PE teacher subbed as the art teacher, which he knew absolutely nothing. So I drew way better than him and knew a lot more than him because of my father. So I didn't even take art in high school, and a lot of high schools, unfortunately, are in that predicament. The arts get cut. There's not a lot of room for these visual learners, so you get shuffled off into some other academic pursuit that really isn't your forte, isn't the way you think, and you have to put a round object into a square hole, just like that old when you were a kid and you're trying to fit things, geometric shapes into the right place. So what I found is that I didn't even bother doing art. I did it from a young age, but elementary schools weren't much better. So when it came time for me to look for schooling, for training, I ventured into, my father had gone to Art Center, and he went to Pratt in New York in the 60s. And those are a New York school and an LA school, and they're very expensive boutique art schools. And my dad, you would think, would have wanted me to go to those schools, but he wanted me to go anywhere but those schools. And I'm not here to really bash on any particular school. I'm here just simply to enlighten or to share knowledge of what I understand about the positives and negatives of these different institutions of learning for art. And this is all we're talking about right now is art. We're not talking about becoming a doctor. We're not talking about becoming an engineer. We're not talking about becoming an accountant or a lawyer or any of those things, because those are where the four-year universities excel. And that's what we're going to talk about, programs. So the first program that you guys are going to be looking into is probably normal universities. You're going to come out of high school and you're going to say, well, I need to go to a really expensive art school like Art Center, or I need to go to UCLA, or I need to go to Stanford, or I need to go to Oxford. These are not good art schools, right? Oxford and Stanford do not excel in the arts. So if you want to go become a lawyer, you want to become a doctor, those are great schools. Excellent, best in the world. You want to go, you want to learn to, how to navigate these myriads of choices that you're going to have, because this could be the definitive decision on whether you succeed becoming a working artist or you don't. And so the four-year universities, the UC schools, the state schools, and the community colleges are an option. But in my opinion, the biggest difficulty with these options and why they don't work is simply because of the accreditation process and the inability for the individual to be able to take classes repetitiously until they master, as well as not being able to pick the instructor with which you want to learn from. And we'll get into this when we get down into ateliers. You'll see what the difference is. So the four-year programs, not a huge fan. A lot of the parents are going to want you to go in that direction because that generation, it was more common that you would go and get a degree, and that would help you to get a job that was out there in the real world. So again, you guys are going to, some of you I'm assuming are fairly young and are looking into, again, what your options are for training. And some of you are already accomplished, already gone through colleges, have already had careers, and you are looking to do art more as a really, maybe as a professional, a second profession, maybe a third profession. That's fine as well. So this will work for all of you as far as the information I'm giving you, I'm sure. The second is the specialty schools. So we have our, the first rung of schools. And then when we talk about specialty schools, we get into AI, we get into San Francisco Academy, RISD, Art Center, all these really boutique schools, art schools. And they are really good at certain things. Some of them excel in very specific areas, like Art Center is incredible at industrial design, very specific areas. But if you want to be like an illustrator, a conceptor, visual development, fine artist, there's really it's very difficult for me to put my seal or my recommendation on going to a school as outrageously expensive as these ones. And just go look into it for yourself and look into the cost of a four-year education at a place like San Francisco Academy Art Center. Probably up in the $150,000 to $200,000 range, okay? So very, very expensive. Good, but have the same similar problems as the initial schools, which is they're accredited, which means you have to go in a very specific manner. You can't take what you want when you want as many times as you want, which is what is really necessary. You can't study with who you want, because if you allowed someone to do that in a school like that, everyone would be log jammed into one fantastic teacher, like say maybe you had Harry Carmian, or you had someone of that caliber, or teaching at somewhere like Art Center. Everyone's going to want to take with Harry. So there'd be 5 other teachers with nobody in their class. So they have to shuffle you through, and you don't get to train with Harry Carmian. You might get him for 3 classes the whole time you're there, for the 4 years that you're there, and you're not going to learn that much from anybody in 4 years. I don't care if it was Michelangelo. You would need them for 4 years. That one instructor learning the depth of their knowledge and through repetition and through subtle training. So again, the boutique art schools are better than the other schools I mentioned, but outrageously expensive and still kind of somewhat inefficient in putting in place an intuitive knowledge base, which is absolutely imperative to working as a professional, okay? So now once we go past that option, then we run into the ateliers. Now, obviously, I'm going to be a big fan of ateliers because I've owned one and ran one now for 23 years. I went to one and trained in that lineage. And what an atelier is it's a more intimate style of training. And it's a French word meaning studio environment. And basically, in the old French system of training, you would come in and you would train under a master for however long it took you to become a master. And that might have been 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. There was no definitive time with which you left. It was a process that occurred organically, and you worked with a master that really understood the trials and tribulations of becoming a master, right? So this is where ateliers are far superior, in my opinion, because you can train with who you want. You can train as many times as you want in the areas until you understand the concepts and become intuitive at them. And they usually are at a fraction of the cost because they're run by artists. Now, when you get into ateliers, you still have to be very careful because you're going to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry putting out their sign saying, hey, I can't really make it as a professional artist, so I think I'll teach. And I think I'll run an atelier because it seems like an easy way to make some money. So you're going to see a lot of that happening. And so what you want to do is be very, do your due diligence, which means do your research ahead of time. A good place to go to do this is Art Renewal Center, which is ARC, which we are a part of. We were one of the first, I think, 5 ateliers to be fully accredited. Our program was fully accredited by them. Now, this is not a government accreditation. So does it, in some ways, it may hold more water, right? Because in the professional arena of art, you're working with people that understand that why they're hiring you is so that you can execute at a certain level for them to make them money. So like say you go to DreamWorks or Disney and you want to be a conceptor for them. They're going to look at, can you do all these different things and can you make us money? They don't care if you have a master's degree, a PhD. They don't care if you went to Stanford. They don't care if you went to Art Center. They look at your portfolio and they want to see quality. And then if your quality is high enough, they will try you out. If you can execute for them, you will keep the job. If you can't execute for them, you will lose the job. And it doesn't matter how many degrees you have behind your name. You have to be able to execute on command, and that means you have to be intuitive with your knowledge base. So ateliers offer a more reasonable option for many people to train with some of the best talent and to basically get as good as you can underneath that person that runs that school. So you want to look into the mission statement of the school. You want to look into people that came out of the school, the work of the instructors at the school, and you want to make sure that your instructors are going to be able to sit down with you, demonstrate in front of you every class, and work on your work every class. Those are the definitive things, and that's what ateliers offer. Now, again, I'm just going over options for your training. The next one, which is the last one I'm going to talk about, is the online option of training, which is now something that we offer. And again, a lot of this sounds like it's padded towards, hey, look at us, we're an atelier, we have an online school, come to us. You can do whatever you want, and you're going to do that anyway. So all I'm trying to do is give you the proper information with which to make an intelligent decision on the type of training facility that you may want to venture into. And at that time, next, we're going to talk about actually training in that area and how that looks. So on the online, the big positive that I see over an actual atelier even is simply repetition. Because what happens in an atelier, which I absolutely love, is you have an incredibly robust environment, hopefully run by an incredibly skilled person or people, artists, that were hopefully trained in a similar lineage so you don't get too confused. That's another thing I did not mention in the earlier, is a lot of times in these other schools, you have too many cooks in the kitchen and too many people teaching too many systems that aren't consistent. So it confuses the newer students rather than helps them. An atelier will have a tendency to have a certain way of teaching that they're known for. We happen to be known for the Riley method or in that lineage. Other ones are known for site size. Other ones follow other lineages. So you want to find the one that has a lineage that most resonates with you and your goals and how you want to operate. So the online school allows you to watch me do something, for example, over and over and over, and you can watch me lay in an eye 52 times, 152 times. If you were at the atelier watching me lay in that demo, you would not be able to take video, and therefore you would probably be at some more abstract angle because you're not going to be right over my head, seeing through my eyes like you are online. So what you're going to get is, unfortunately, a small percentage of retention. So in order to retain what I just taught you, you might have to see 20 or 30 different demos. Okay, online, you won't get the variety of the 30 demos, but you'll get a heavier retention by watching it over and over, being able to do that. And so and also just the luxury of being able to train in your own comfort of your own home at any time when you want, is you can't even put a price on that. So what I think the most ideal scenario is to be ideally in a school like Atelier, like Watts Atelier, and then be on the online program for your homework. So you have, because one thing that when you're learning the arts, I tried to learn piano a few years ago, and I always had wanted to since I was a kid, and I had an okay instructor, but he would come in and he would show me a few things, and I would get it and I'd be doing good, and he would leave, and when he left, I had nothing. I couldn't remember anything. I didn't have anything to look at, and I was really completely lost until he came back. So I couldn't do much, even practice, because I couldn't remember how to practice what he showed me. So I noticed that that's a recurring issue with a lot of people. And one thing that they do not tell you in art school is that what you learn, you have to remember. And the only way to remember something is to repeat it until you can do it without looking at it. So if you want to draw an eye in 3/4, you have to draw eyes in 3/4 from Loomis, from casts, from life, until you can draw that eye believably with nothing in front of you. Then you know that information. And most people do not understand that concept. You go in, you take algebra, you get an A, you go to algebra 2, you pass that, you get a B, then you go to pre-cal or trigonometry, whatever, and you work your way up the ladder of mathematics. And you don't go back and remember everything in algebra 1. Just grill it and have to remember it and memorize it. You do, but it's a little different. Visual information can only be retained through proper repetition, and that repetition has to be guided by someone that already has done it, knows how to do it, and what we call this is putting an eye in place. So when you go to school, an atelier, you're basically leasing my eyeballs until yours see like mine, right? And that could be a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. No one could tell you how long that's going to take. There is no definitive way to do that I've ever seen. So the ateliers are a little bit more rogue. They're going to get, there's going to be a little bit more ups and downs because they're run by artists. Artists don't always notoriously run businesses well. So it's hard to find one that can do both. So you want to just do your due diligence, do your research online. It's easy to do now, and really take your time, because you could save yourself a lot of grief, a lot of money, and a lot of frustration if you make the right decision. If you make the wrong decision, you could basically write yourself out of being a professional working artist, almost guaranteed. So that being said, we're going to get into next talking about the various phases of your training, from the first 1 to 3 years to the 3 to 5 years and the 5 to 10 years, and what those are going to look like as you're training. So you'll get a little bit of better understanding of the overall big picture of what it's going to take to move through all this knowledge that you're going to need to go out and have fun working as a professional artist. And it is a wonderful way to make a living. So don't sell yourself short. Don't let the naysayers, keep you from following your dreams. Just make intelligent decisions so that your dreams can become a reality. Okay, so we talked a little bit about school options, like what, actual brick and mortar schools versus online schools versus ateliers. And we got a little bit better understanding now of kind of what our options are as far as where we could go to train. Now, once you make your decision, whatever it may be, you're going to find yourself at that school, and you're going to have to now figure out, how do you actually assimilate the information that's in that school? How do you pull that information out of your instructor, get it into your head, get it to come out through your hands, and to produce excellent work? And that's easier said than done. You might have a phenomenal teacher, but does that teacher have a vested interest in getting you better than them? Do they shut down when they start seeing that you're getting really good in certain areas? Are they an open book, and are they extremely generous with their knowledge? These are all things that you have to start training yourself to be able to perceive and understand and see in your instructors, because certain instructors, they're good when you're new, and they're not so good when you start to encroach on their skill levels. I've seen that happen many times. So there's lots of little pitfalls and things that we have to start thinking about as far as taking accountability for our own education. Not saying, oh, I went to this really expensive school, therefore I'm going to be good. That's no guarantee whatsoever. And any school that guarantees you that, which I have heard some of them say, oh, sign up with us, we'll get you a job. We have a great 75% percentage of people working professionally. What you don't know about that is that they consider you working at an art store as working in an art industry. That's what I found out later. I was like, well, you got to be kidding me. Spent $200,000 and I'm working at Dick Blick selling art supplies. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about going out and working in those upper echelon jobs, which are the 5 to 10% in the world. Talent, right? You want to work at Pixar, you want to work at DreamWorks, you want to work at Rockstar, top 5% in the world. That's what you got to be. Not in the 15, 20 percentile or whatever, which would still be impressive, but not going to do it. So what we want to do is, when we start talking about our daily regimen that we employ to allow the information to be absorbed, digested into our brain, and then memorized, and then executed out of our hand to allow us to draw a nice head, to paint a beautiful eye, to indicate like Fetchin or someone like that. This is where to me, most systems of education presently do not do a good job of preparing you for the rigors of training or what that even means. When I was in school, no one sat me down and said, okay, here's how you set up a training regimen. Here's what you should be doing in the morning. Here's what you should be doing in the afternoon. Here's what you should be doing in the evening. Here's the books you should be studying. Here's what you should be studying in those books. Here's how you should be studying them. Here are some techniques for memorizing this visual information. And here's how you go about absorbing this content. I had to figure all that out on my own. And luckily, I came from a background of self-education in athletics, learning how to train, learning how to find obscure pieces of information, seeking out people that knew what they were talking about, learning how to listen to the right ones, learning how to pick the right ones, learning how to avoid the ones that were wasting my time, and then cut to the chase and get as good as I can, as fast and efficiently as I could. And again, a lot of you are going to want to race through school and go out to make money. That is not the mentality of a working artist. First, passion and love of the craft. Second, then is working. But that love of the craft must be instilled in the individual, and it's best done by an inspirational teacher that has your best interest at hand. That's what you got to find, okay? So you've got to become a very astute student of character. You have to be able to see that character in your teachers, understand what it looks like, understand what it's like. People like Robert Henri, Howard Pyle, Andrew Loomis, William Merritt Chase. These are the grand masters of teaching. These are the ones that we look to still, long after they're gone, for inspiration in how do we navigate this pathway towards mastery in the arts. Well, let's say, for example, what does the first 1 to 3 years look like when you come into our atelier or when you start training in this method? Well, time allocation. Some of you are going to be good at it. Some of you are going to be horrendous at it. How does one allocate? How does one piece out their time to allow them to do the studying and the work that needs to be done? Now, if you're 17, 18 years old and you've got no mortgage and you've got no kids and you've got no job and you've got no wife or husband, you're in good shape, right? You're traveling lean, you got some time, but most people at that age do not appreciate the time they have and do not understand how to allocate it, use it. So they waste a lot of it, okay? Some of you are coming in and you already got 2 kids in tow and you got a mortgage and you got a job that you're not too happy with and you think you want to become a working professional artist. Well, you got a long road to hoe and it's a very, very strong uphill battle. Is it doable? Yes, but not if you can't allocate your time and you can't understand how to navigate. So the first thing you have to do is develop short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. So let's say a short-term goal would be, I want to be proficient at head lay-ins in the next 6 months. Okay, we can do that. Now, how do we do that? Well, we've got to go to the right sources. Well, it would be helpful if we had a teacher like myself or Eric or one of the guys at our atelier, and you could come in and take 20-minute head lay-ins, head drawing, features and facial expressions, and things of that sort. Well, that would help because we'd give you that structure from which to train in. You have to have the right books at home, right? So if you go and you say, okay, I want to learn how to do head lay-ins, and you go to sit down and draw, but you got nothing to draw from. Or you're drawing from some book that the guy draws really bad heads, but you don't know it yet because your eye can't perceive that. And here you are studying these heads from this guy, and you're starting to pick up his technique for drawing heads, which is not very sound, not very well developed. You are going to draw like that person. So you're basically putting in information that later has to be removed by someone that's incredibly knowledgeable, which the chances of meeting one of those people or being able to go to a school with one of those people is very rare. Okay, so what we have is we have short-term, mid-term, long-term goals. What I want you to do in these first period of your training is go out to like Home Depot or one of these business, stores that sells business items, printers and printer paper, all that kind of stuff, and buy yourself a cheap, or you can do this on your iPad or whatever, on your calendar function or whatever. I'm kind of old school, so you go get one of these calendars that breaks your day down into half-an-hour increments, and you start listing what are my obligations each week for working out, for eating, for when do I sleep, when do I hang out with my partner, when do I do all these things, everything that you have to do. So you get some highlight markers, different colors, and pink highlighter is for work, and the green highlighter is for studying, and the orange highlighter is for working out. And you basically fill in everything that's mandatory, and you highlight it out, right? You do a little legend for yourself, like I just mentioned. And you start to see what kind of time you're really working with. What kind of life are you working with? And this might mean jettisoning some things that you used to like to to do. Can't watch Housewives of Orange County. Can't watch, whatever. You might have to put those on hold and say, okay, that's an hour that I could be drawing. That I sit and I watch some, reality TV show or something, or Dancing with the Stars. I don't know, whatever. You do need some downtime. But if you want to be serious about this and you have a tough life designed for yourself or whatever you find yourself in, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And that's the first thing we have to realize. Got to jettison some stuff that we don't need so that we can make time for this. Because this is going to be a big time sucker. So you have to have a very supportive either parents or spouse to be able to even try to do this, okay? So you get that calendar, you feel it out, and you start to see what the reality of your situation is. When we know that reality, then we can start setting up a logical progression of things that we need to study. And so if you're in a school, you want your homework to accompany sometimes what it is that you're training in school. So if you're out of school and you're taking a heavy head semester and you're taking 4 portrait drawing classes and 1 portrait painting class, at home, you have some options. You can either repeat more of that kind of training to keep your head information coming up, or you can actually intersperse it with, say, doing some figure work because you're already doing enough head work in class. So we have to start becoming intelligent about how we think about what we study, what books we study, what we study from, and then learning to allocate our time to be able to find the time to do that training. So what I tell people is, you're taking 4 classes with us. So you got some 18-year-old kid. I said, okay, pretend like this is a part-time job for you. So you're in class part-time. That's 20 hours a week. At home, I want you to do another 20 hours of homework. So now you got 40 hours a week that you're putting into your training. That's pretty good. That's a really good amount of time. But that's very rare for somebody to be able to do that unless they're, again, really young with supportive parents that understand. And then you have some options. You can either repeat the calendar, you feel it out, and reality TV show or something, or Dancing with the Stars. I don't know, whatever. You do need some downtime. But if you want to be serious about this and you have a tough life designed, can't watch Housewives of Orange County, can't watch, whatever. You might have to put those on hold and say, okay, that's an hour that I could be drawing. That I sit and I watch some, reality. And that's the first thing we have to realize. Can't watch needs that we can't watch supportive of Orange County, can't watch, whatever. You might have to put those on hold and say, okay, that's an hour that I could be drawing. That I sit and I watch some, reality TV show or something, or Dancing with the Stars. I don't know, whatever. You do need some downtime. But if you want to be serious about this and you have a tough life designed for yourself or whatever you find yourself in, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And that's the first thing we have to realize. Got to jettison some stuff that we don't need so that the quality of your situation is. Orange County study. Orange County can't company. Some of Orange County can't watch, can't watch jettisons. Do all, and I watch some, reality TV show or something, or Dancing with the, and you start to see what the reality of your situation is. When we know that reality, then we can start setting up a logical progression of things that we need to study. And so if you're in a school, you want your homework to accompany sometimes what it is that you're training in school. So if you're out of school and you're taking homework to accompany, I watch some, reality TV show or something, or Dancing with the Stars. I don't know, whatever. You do need some downtime. But if you want to be serious about this and you have a tough life, can't watch, whatever. You might have to put those on hold and say, okay, that's an hour that I could be drawing. That I sit and I watch some, reality TV show or something, or Dancing with the Stars. I don't know, whatever. You do need some downtime. But if you want to be serious about this and you have a tough life designed for yourself or whatever you find yourself in, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And that's the first thing we have to realize. Got to jettison some stuff that we don't need so that we can make time for this. Because this is going to be a big time sucker. So you have to have a very supportive either parents or spouse to be able to even try to do this, okay? So you get that calendar, you feel it out, and you start to see what the reality of your situation is. When we know that reality, then we can start setting up a logical progression of things that we need to study. And so if you're in a school, you want your homework to accompany sometimes what it is that you're training in school. So if you're out of school and you're taking a heavy head semester and you're taking 4 portrait drawing classes and 1 portrait painting class, at home, you have some options. You can either repeat more of that kind of training to keep your head information coming up, or you can actually intersperse it with, say, doing some figure work because you're already doing enough head work in class. So we have to start becoming intelligent about how we think about what we study, what books we study, what we study from, and then learning to allocate our time to be able to find the time to do that training. So what I tell people is, you're taking 4 classes with us. So you got some 18-year-old kid. I said, okay, pretend like this is a part-time job for you. So you're in class part-time. That's 20 hours a week. At home, I want you to do another 20 hours of homework. So now you got 40 hours a week that you're putting into your training. That's pretty good. That's a really good amount of time. But that's very rare for somebody to be able to do that unless they're, again, really young with supportive parents to understand. And then to find a kid disciplined enough to be able to do that at that age is really hard too. So most of you are going to be doing this on the side of a job, after hours, on the weekends. And you're going to have to schluck it out like everybody else, 95% of the other people. And you will make it happen. But that's why it takes so long to get good and become a professional. It might take 15 years if you're doing it that way. There's no way around it. I mean, it just is what it is. So when I tell people when they first come in, the first maybe say year to 3 years that you're at the atelier, it's a 70-30 split between drawing and painting. 70% drawing, 30% painting. We teach a painterly style of drawing. So you're learning to paint while you're learning to draw. And that's a really great benefit. Some schools are linear in their teaching of drawing, which means when you go from drawing to painting, it doesn't transition very well. And so it's almost like 2 different entities. And that's why a lot of people liken painting to painting and drawing to drawing, rather than seeing drawing as painting and painting as drawing, which is the way we see it at our atelier. So again, you have these components that you have to start to become aware of. Memorization through repetition, number 1, okay? For a lot of you that are very intelligent, this is gonna bore you to death, right? You're gonna have to sit down and draw the same stupid eyeball 20 times, 50 times, okay? And it's just gonna be hard for you. Now, some people like myself, which I'm very fortunate that I am somewhat OCD and that I have the ability to do copious amounts of repetition with no boredom whatsoever. Okay, so that's why I gravitate towards certain athletic endeavors in my life. Certain things I excelled at were always repetitious things. If you're not gifted or lucky enough to have that kind of mindset, it's a curse and a blessing, believe me. But that's something that I have been able to play to my advantage, is my ability to immerse myself in complicated things and do copious amounts of repetition until I get it. That's something that if you don't possess that, you will need to cultivate that. And that is going to be challenging, okay? Some of you are going to be other things, Intelligence in art is absolutely necessary, but it's not as necessary as it is for, say, maybe engineering or certain neurophysics or something. I don't know. There's areas where those aptitudes would be stronger. So sometimes the most intelligent people I meet are some of the most difficult to teach to become intuitive in art because they think too much about it. They rely too much on their analytical brain rather than their intuitive aspects of their intellect. And so we'll get into that more in the later stages because that's when that really starts to play out. So again, in this first year to 3, you're going to be doing lots of learning to prioritize, learning to multitask, learning to allocate your time, learning that memorization and repetition are key, and emulation. Emulation is another big one. Emulating is the fastest way to proficiency, in my opinion, in the visual arts and in other things. Find someone who already knows what you want to do and is incredibly good at it, and if they're willing to teach you, glue yourself to them like gum on their shoe and stay with them until you understand these concepts. That is the fastest way to proficiency, is to, if you can go, you want to play golf and you happen to be able to go to a driving range and hang out with Tiger Woods woods every day, watch his swing, watch his mentality, hear him talk, get to understand how he thinks, watch how he prepares before he, everything. That would be like you'd died and gone to heaven, right? So a good atelier with a good instructor is like that. You get to come in and train with some guy that's at the upper echelon of his craft, and you get to be with him all the time, or her, and get to absorb that information. That is extremely rare. Like the people that are at our atelier, me, Eric, the rest of us, you will not find more than a handful of people like that, of that caliber, that will do weekly training of somebody that's brand new that can't even hold a pencil. I mean, you're not going to see Richard Schmidt doing that, right? You're not going to see hardly anybody of that caliber doing that. So that's another thing. When you find that, man, go there. But if you can't, go online and train with me. Try it for a month. If you don't like it, cancel. It's cheap, it's efficient, and it's like getting a Rolls-Royce education for a Hyundai price. You got to try it. You got to try it. So the third thing is cultivating taste, developing an eye. So when someone comes into school, I am going to put their eye in place. How am I going to do that? Through demonstration, through articulation, verbal and visual, through sitting on their drawings, fixing them for them, in front of them. Okay, you painted the eye. Now here's what I would do. I will paint it, make it look 50% better. You remember whatever percentages that you can. Chances are it's going to be a small percentage in the beginning because your visual memory is going to be weak. So we need to cultivate that. We need to strengthen that. Just like going to the gym, you got to build the muscles. How do you do it? Through proper training and through repetitious training until the muscles strengthen. You've got to challenge the muscles as they get stronger. You can't just keep doing the same thing. Otherwise, you stagnate and flatline. Same thing in art. You got to keep pushing yourself into higher levels of learning, harder techniques, harder methods, harder topics that bend your brain inside and out. But this should be fun for you. If that is not fun for you and you don't enjoy the challenge, you may not really be doing your life's passion, your life's work. You may want to look for something else. Or you may want to just do art casually. But I'm not good at teaching casual artists as much because I don't function that way. I want people to learn. I'm assuming that they want to get good. I'm assuming that they're hardworking. I'm making a lot of assumptions when I meet people. And I got to be careful that way because a lot of people do lack discipline. They do lack focus. They are procrastinators. They don't normally self-educate well. They don't self-motivate well. They aren't extremely disciplined. They don't allocate their time well. I mean, I could list 50 things that most people possess. And these are things that we have to overcome. And this is one of the greatest things in your art journey is in training is going to be facilitating and putting in place the things I just told you, because those are things that are going to help you excel in every area of your life, relationships, business, I don't care what you go into. So that's something that training will help. Focus, patience, and discipline is the last one. Focus, patience, discipline. Okay, these are things that everybody has a hard time with. I don't care who you are. Focus, very difficult. Things that can help, meditation, yoga, things that require that you focus your energy, right? This is not a cult. This is not something crazy. This is not out there in left field. Meditation is simply focusing the brain on a single thing in order to strengthen the ability and resolve to focus in a one-point area, not have your mind racing all over the universe, okay? So patience, oh my God, I mean, this is going to help. You have to have it. You have to have the patience of Job. Discipline, you have to be willing to get up every day, fight the good fight, work through the hard days, work when you're sick, work when you're not feeling great, and enjoy it. Enjoy drawing the head over and over in 3/4. Find the love of it. Find the love of the feel of the pencil on the paper, the passion. It's not about, oh, I got an A, look, or, hey, I just passed this class. That is such a rudimentary way of learning. It's passé. It's obsolete, in my opinion. It does not work in art. There's no place. So I don't grade. Why? I don't believe in it. If I have to leverage you through grades to get you good, you're not going to make it. Period. It's not going to happen. You're not disciplined enough, and it's not going to work. So I don't even go there. For me, when people come to the atelier, they're there because they want to get good. They've already been through the rigmarole of organized education and whatever. And it does work if you want to be an accountant, It doesn't work if you want to be a painter. So what we got is for the first 1 to 3 years, that's what I call the early years in your training. It's all about getting proficient at drawing because you want to get good cheap. And the best way to do it is through drawing, not through painting. Painting's expensive. It's time consuming. It's difficult. The concepts are the same if you teach them the same in charcoal. So you can still dabble in paint, but we got to get a nice foundational component put together. So that's your foundation years. So that's basically your first early years is about all those concepts I just mentioned. It's about discipline. It's about focus, about allocating your time. It's about learning to understand what you're getting into and not try to master anything. Just try to embrace where you're at right now. You don't have to be a master. Like Robert Henry said, be a master at whatever level you are, however little that may be. Just embrace what you have and just continue to work progressively up higher and higher. So the next thing we're going to talk about is your mid years, which is year 3 to 5 or 6, somewhere in that next 3 years after you're starting to get your foundational components put together. So we will talk about that momentarily. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about our early years of training and what that's going to encompass and what we're trying to do. We're trying to put our eye in place. We're trying to get disciplined. We're trying to learn how to allocate our time. We're trying to learn how to grasp this idea of repetition and how much repetition is actually going to be. Now, this repetition aspect will carry on through the rest of your life. And the thing that the next couple of years, I've noticed in students at our atelier, because a lot of our students at our atelier will stay from between probably the serious ones on average 5 years, some 5 to 10. And some of those 10-year ones become teachers of mine. So they start teaching 7 years in, 8 years in, usually co-teaching with me about 5 or 6 years in. And then about 7, 8 years in, they start to carry their own classes. And then about 10 years in, they're able to actually carry a class at our atelier with the same kind of level of proficiency that I would want for a teacher at our atelier. So there's not many people at our atelier that ever teach because no one ever stays around for 10 years. But I'm happy to say that all my present teachers are about 12 plus years. Eric's going on 19 years. So it's such a healthy environment that you do have people, no one ever wants to leave it. They usually have to leave it for financial reasons or because they absolutely have to move somewhere for a job or something. But and that's another reason why I love the online atelier, because I'm now able to go back to these people that did have to leave and say, no, man, you can now finish your training with us. You can actually go and do all the things that you wanted to do that you never had time to do. So when you were around. So years 3 to 5, 3 to 6, somewhere in that mid-range, we're talking about proficiency now, right? We're starting to get used to this idea. We've kind of dedicated ourselves to this idea that we do want to get good. We've been at it long enough to know that it's not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be some magic brush, some magic concept that somebody bestows upon us, some teacher, at some specialized time. It just, you start to realize it's just plain old intelligent hard work and perseverance. And the people that end up doing it at the end are the ones that are still standing, the ones that learned that it's a journey that they're supposed to, and it's such a cliche that, it's